All right. Good evening, everybody. Says we are live. It is 7:30. So welcome, everybody. I'm Michael Batiste from the Elk Calling Academy, and welcome to Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A. So if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Glad to have you. So the way this works is we basically just have a topic. Tonight, we're actually just going to be talking about shot placement and ethics. And I know this is kind of a hot topic, has been for a little while. But, anyways, so you do have the chat options on the right. So at any time, you can type in your questions, type in your comments. I'll see them and respond to them. So, all right. So, it seems like as archery equipment advances, shot placement and shot distance changes. There's a lot of ethics in question lately, and the one thing about ethics is what one person may deem as ethical, somebody else may not. So archery, good evening. So me, for example, I'm still kind of old school. I got into archery to get as close to an animal as I could. And I mean, I've seen some really odd things happen. And I'll admit it, I've taken some questionable shots in, my elk hunting career. But my whole deal was get as close as possible, remove as many variables as possible. And it seems like as archery equipment advances, and you have a lot of these shoots nowadays that are just about long range. How far can you shoot? How far can you press that bow? And that has bled over into the hunting woods. And like I said, it's my thought on maximum shot distance and somebody else's is completely different. And so when it comes to ethics, this is something that you need to really look inwardly and ask yourself on, because you're the only one that can answer that. But the hard part is if you make a choice and something bad happens, just be prepared, because you're going to have so many people that are going to question your choice and question your ethics and question everything about what you did. So now, for me, my maximum shot that I will take on an elk is 40 yards. That is the first initial shot. If I already have an arrow in an animal, it's wounded, and I want to do a follow-up shot, I will stretch that out. But for the first shot, for me, 40 yards is max that I will take. I mean, nowadays you're hearing a lot of people take 60, 70, 80-yard shots. And I get it. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, and they're all, do you understand how much skill it takes to execute a shot at that longer yardage? I absolutely do. I practice longer yardages all summer long. And in fact, I practice on a target that is a elk silhouette. So it's like I'm shooting an actual elk. But shooting on a practice range and shooting in a hunting scenario with a live animal are two completely different things. You have that animal's instincts, behaviorals, you have your adrenaline, your emotions. There's just so many factors that go into it. And at 80 yards, a bull taking one step can mean the difference between being right behind the shoulder and a punch hit. And I've had discussions with people that feel 100% comfortable with that, and I've asked them if they've ever made a bad hit on an animal, and most of them are so new in their hunting career that no, they haven't. And that's one of the things that I told them is, the first time that you get on an animal that is liver hit or punch hit, just the agonizing time. I mean, remember, we have a responsibility for a quick, clean, ethical kill as fast as possible. That's why I want to get as close as possible. Um, you know, the other thing too is kinetic energy, and um, man, I don't know how many times have had it at even 25, 30 yards, not even seeing a little branch and having your arrow deflect. So yeah, losing an animal is way, way worse than missing one. I agree. Um, even a poor hit on an animal and tracking that thing, even if you do still recover it, but it's 6, 7, 8 hours later. I mean, it's agonizing, man, just everything that you go through. But yeah, 25, 30 yards and not being able to see a little branch and deflect the arrow, that, a clean miss, or deflect an arrow and a poor hit. Now, yes, I know those things happen, but tonight we're talking about ethics. What's too far? What's your personal range? What's your maximum effective range? And again, like I said, this is going to be something that's different for everybody, and it's something that you have to ask yourself. And it's easy to do on a range. So, um, my wife, this past year was her second year of archery hunting, and my stepson, it was his first year of archery hunting. And that's a conversation that I've had with both of them, was as a new hunter, especially a new bow hunter, I'm like, don't don't sit there and say, I want that 6 point wall hanger, because man, man, when you're new to bow hunting and a bull like that steps out in front of you, your emotions just, oh man, you lose it. And that's why a cow or a spike or a young bull, just experiencing that shot execution, the arrow going through, the whole tracking process. Um, it's an incredible thing. But I mean, I've seen some weird things. I remember there was a bull once that came in 15, 16-yard shot, saw my arrow disappear right behind the shoulder, just perfectly exactly where I wanted it in the triangle. And he wheeled and went off, and I kind of sat there for a little bit, and my hunting partner came down and joined me, and I said, okay. I said, well, let's go up to where the bull was and look for my arrow. And I get up there and I find my arrow, and it's just all green stomach matter. It's pot shot. And I just, I was floored. I couldn't understand what the heck happened. Because I saw that arrow disappear right behind the shoulder, right where I was holding my pin. I know I didn't peek. I know I didn't, I executed the shot, but the arrow disappeared. And so I asked my hunting partner, I said, just give me a minute. I'm going to drop down, on this old cut road where the bull ran across. And so I walked down there, and I was just walking the road, and I looked over, and there's the bull just right on the other side of the road. He didn't go 40 yards. And so went down there, and he was on the left side, which is where the arrow went in. And yeah, you could see a hole perfectly right behind the shoulder. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I put my finger in the hole, and what happened is I nicked on the very, very edge of the rib, and it caused that arrow to make a really sharp right angle and came out, because we flipped the bull over, and it came out just right in front of his hind quarter. So, that was 16 yards. Imagine if that shot was 75, 80 yards, and I had lost a lot of that kinetic energy. What would happen then? So, would I get that second? I mean, it's things can happen at such short distances, that why magnify them at, at longer yardages, at longer distances. So, okay. So let's move on to shot placement. Obviously perfect broadside is one thing that we always strive for. Double long, highest percentage. So, but there's a few factors on this. Is that near leg forward? Is it back? This is understanding and studying the elk's anatomy. And again, this is an ethics thing, understanding the anatomy of what you're pursuing, whether that's elk or deer or whatever, but understanding that anatomy and how it works and the bone structure is vital. So, but yeah, so completely broadside. What about quartering away? Quartering away is still a high ethical shot, because you get a lot of the vitals. Um, good rule of thumb is just aim for the opposite shoulder. That's what you hear on the aiming mechanism for quartering away. Quartering to, again, this is going to go to the elk's anatomy and bone structure, the way the bone structure in the leg and the ribs are. Quartering to is an extremely low percentage shot, and more times than not, you'll hear people of sticking in the shoulder, or they will aim right behind the shoulder tight, and what happens is that arrow comes in, hits a rib, and then it turns and just goes down. And I've recovered a couple of elk with this. That arrow turns and ends up going right in between the ribs and the hide. Doesn't hit any vitals. So I've also seen pictures from other people with this too. Now, with that said, I have taken one shot that was quartering to. But again, I understood the elk's anatomy, and this bull was 12 yards, slightly uphill, and that left leg was back. So it opened up the armpit. I had a nice soft window. And at that short yardage, that arrow zipped right through. That bull didn't even go 25, 30 yards before he toppled over. That's the one and only time I have ever taken the quartering to. I have had that shot angle other times, and I've just passed on it. So, walking directly away. Now, a Texas heart shot on an elk is not an ethical shot. And then finally, we come to straight on frontal. I think frontal shots, and again, this is something that everybody needs to ask themselves, ethical or non-ethical. To me personally, I think the frontal shot is one of the most lethal shots that there are. You have a basketball size opening within the rib cage, and you take out heart, lung, liver, you take out everything. Now, there are a few caveats for me to take that frontal shot. It has to be 20 yards or less, level or slightly downhill, no brush, and that bull has to be completely calm. If all those boxes are not checked, I won't take that. Some of the most heavy flow blood trails that I have ever followed have been from frontal shots. And they have not gone far at all. I've had elk with the frontal shot drop just a few feet from me. Didn't even hardly make it anywhere. So, but again, everybody's a little bit different on their ethics. If you're not okay with the frontal shot, then don't take it. But it is, again, it's something that you need to practice. There are some targets out there now that do have photos of a frontal elk so you can get used to taking that frontal that actually shows you where the vital is. And the cool thing is, these targets are partnered with Quiver. So you can actually go up and you can remove the skin. You can look at the vitals so you can see exactly where your arrow's hitting. So frontal with a mechanical or a fixed blade. I'm a fixed blade guy. I don't trust mechanicals. Um, that's one of those things where I said in archery, I want to remove as many variables as I can. And in fact, what's kind of funny is I've actually kind of gone away from some of the modern, like I ran a ham ski rest on my Matthews for quite a few years, and I actually just switched to an AAE rest that is just a single sear rest. There's not a lot to it, so it just rises, falls. So pretty simple. But no, I'm a fixed blade guy. That's all we've been able to use in Idaho up until just a year ago or 2 years ago that they started allowing mechanicals. I've just heard too many horror stories, and yes, I know there's horror stories about fixed blades too. But for me personally, in my experience, it's hard to beat a good cut on contact fixed blade. So. The bull was uphill looking down on me, but I hit slightly right and my arrow went down his rib cage. Yeah, see, there's another one. It happens. In fact, one of the bulls that I talk about when I'm doing seminars, or I've talked about this, or I'm on podcast, I remember got on the subject of call shy elk. And I don't believe that elk are call shy. I mean, elk are a social herd animal that vocalizations is a big part of their socializations. So for somebody to say elk are call shy, that means that they're call shy with themselves. That means that they run from each other. So, but there was a bull, it was an evening hunt. Kind of one of those evening hunts that was fast and furious. Light was fading, had a couple of bulls coming in, and shooter number one made the shot. We heard the arrow hit. Wait a little bit, got too dark. We tried to go up and follow with flashlights, but it just went into some really thick buckbrush. So we backed out, came back in the next morning, started on the trail, just found a few pin drops. But we got on his track, followed his track across the face, up over the soft little ridge and down on the backside into a basin. And when we got up top and looked down, there he was down in the middle of the basin, just running around rutting. I mean, bugling, chasing cows. So we're like, okay, this was a non-lethal hit. We sat there and watched him for a while and said, okay, let's just back out. We'll come back in on him in a couple of days when his mind's reset and he's kind of forgot about that. And so we came back in about 3 days later. Different shooter this time. The first shooter actually went down to where we encountered him with another person in our camp. I had a second shooter with me. We get set up, and I mean, it was one of those mornings that you dream of. I mean, it was Jurassic Park, but bull coming in. I hear shooter number 2 bow go off, and I just keep calling. And about 5 minutes later, I hear his bow go off again. And I'm like, man, that's kind of odd. And so still, I just keep calling because I'm back far enough. I don't really know what's going on. I'm close enough that I can hear the bow go off, but I'm not close enough that I can't see what's going on. And he comes walking over to me, and I asked him, I said, did you shoot twice? And he goes, man, it was incredible. This bull came walking right down the trail, followed the trail right in front of him 20 yards, and he zipped it with an arrow. That bull turned, went running back up the hill. I started calling again. The bull stopped, and then he walked back down to the trail to the same place. And so he knocked a second arrow and shot it again. And man, we got on that blood trail, found the bull, started breaking it down. And oh, so exactly like you, we found that first arrow from 3 nights or 3 days earlier. And same thing, it was quartering 2. It turned and just went along the ribs, in between the ribs and the hide, hit nothing. But this is a bull that, called in 3 times in 3 days and got shot 3 times. If anybody's going to be call shy, it's going to be that guy. So, Andy, Magnus Black Hornet with bleeders is okay. That's a great broadhead. So, absolutely great broadhead. I get asked what broadheads I use. I've used QAD Exodus for years. Some of the best results I've ever had with that. A few years back, I was in Wyoming doing a seminar series, and we ended up doing a broadhead test where we tested strength, durability. We were shooting into cinder blocks, also quietness, and I think the QAD and Tooth of the Arrow came out on top. Last year, I did just switch to Evolution Outdoors. Great flight. Now, here's the other thing too. A lot of people are going to choose mechanical over fixed blades because they're going to sit there and say, well, a mechanical just flies like a field point automatically, and fixed blades don't. If your bow is tuned properly, a fixed blade will absolutely fly exactly like your field points and will hit exactly where your field points do. You don't have to move anything. And that's where, when you're setting in and dialing up your bow or sighting it in, doing a walk back works perfectly. And when you do that switch from field points to your fixed blade, doing a walk back tune works as well. That's a subject for another night. So, okay. So we've talked about distance. We've talked about, shot angles. There is a live session that we did a while ago on shot placement where we actually talked about the triangle. We took, actual images of elk, drew the triangle, removed the hide, showed where everything is. And so that way you knew exactly, on that shot placement. So now, like I said earlier, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you are not subscribers to the YouTube or the Elk Calling Academy YouTube channel, please subscribe. And also, too, when you're on there, hit that join button. We do have some new things on the YouTube channel that you can join. You have 2 options when you hit join. Option 1 is you can unlock private videos for the Elk Calling Mastery Blueprint, which is basically an online course where I take my 30 plus years of elk hunting and just laid out for you. Elk vocalizations, hunt strategies, all kinds of things. Second option is Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A. Starting in March, we will go back to private live Q&As. So hit that one if you want to participate in live Q&As and also get access to all the replays. So I have a bull tag for November in Arizona. Nice. It has been 5 years draw rut. So it has been a while. No, congratulations, Andy. Arizona's a tough tag to draw. And in fact, I think a buddy of mine, he just drew again this year, and I think it's been 15 years since he has been back to Arizona. So I have not. Arizona and New Mexico have escaped me. I've hunted elk in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. So, but Arizona and New Mexico have not been very kind to me with the tags. So, but that's okay. So, all right, guys, that is pretty much what I have tonight for ethics. I just kind of want to talk about shot distance and shot placement. Again, ethics is really your internal gauge on what you think is right. Just remember, whatever choice you make, you are going to have to deal with the consequences. So every action has it. So, Mike, I'm coming to Idaho this year as non-resident. How are the hunters there when it comes to non-resident guys? Also it's hit and miss. So if you are respectful, they will be respectful back. You still will have some of those guys that snicker and sneer because of the non-resident plates, but you will also have some of those guys that basically are just really helpful. So, but if you do your homework, come in prepared, be respectful of the land, be respectful of others. Basically, good ethics. So you'll have a great time. I was scared for my truck. So, get a piece of get a piece of cardboard, get a black marker and write it's a rental, and put that up in one of the side windows or back window. So, um, that way they think that you flew in and it's just a rental truck. So no, you know, just like any other state, good majority of the people are good, respectful, shouldn't have to worry. I know there's all kinds of horror stories out there. But also too, I think some of those horror stories stem from, I mean, I've seen it with non-residents in Hunt area. So um, but I've also had some that were really, really cool and had conversations with them. And I actually pointed them towards some bulls, said, you know, hey, we're focusing over here. We found some over here. Go enjoy. So you can most definitely run into that same thing. So, all right. So ethics, it's an internal check. So I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun. And we will catch you guys in 2 weeks on the next Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A. Make sure you hit that join button so that way you're with us live again in 2 weeks. And enjoy, guys. Talk to you later.